What if death were less a severance and more an invitation to a grander existence? Imagine the final breath not as an end, but as an opening, a doorway into a profound journey beyond what we've known. In our last exploration, we journeyed through the Tibetan Bardo Thodol, where souls are guided through a series of intermediate states, facing projections of their own consciousness. I will leave you a link at the end of the video, as well as in the description below, so that you can catch up. Today we cross into the world of pharaohs and sacred hieroglyphs to unlock the secrets of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, also known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not merely a departure, but the beginning of a great voyage, an intricate, purposeful quest for the soul. And like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, also called the Book of Coming Forth by Day, was a map for navigating the mysteries that unfold beyond life's visible edge. Egyptian philosophy rests on a powerful understanding that life and death are deeply entwined, each feeding into the other in a continuous cycle of growth and transformation. Unlike modern views that might depict death as a mysterious void or an endpoint, Egyptians saw it as a passage, a step that each of us will inevitably take. Their texts, carved into stone, painted on papyrus, and woven into daily life, reveal a worldview where existence doesn't end with the body, but continues through realms that echo our earthly deeds, intentions, and wisdom. This philosophy shares echoes with Tibetan Buddhism's view of death, where consciousness remains aware, passing through stages that reflect one's inner state. But for the Egyptians, this journey was one of fierce preparation and reverence, a quest to reach a state of eternal peace, or risk being lost. To the Egyptians, life was a kind of training ground for the soul. Every choice, every action, and every word left a spiritual imprint, a legacy that would shape the soul's experience in the next life. This belief was not merely a set of religious rules, but a deeply held philosophy that inspired Egyptians to live with purpose and integrity, guided by the principles of Ma'at, truth, balance, order, and justice. Death was not feared, but prepared for with care, precision, and the sacred guidance of texts like the Book of the Dead. Just as the Tibetan Book of the Dead prepares the soul for a realm of vivid, sometimes unsettling visions, the Egyptian guide readied the soul for an encounter with a reality shaped by its own moral weight. In both the Egyptian and Tibetan traditions, preparing for death is more than understanding ritual. It's about cultivating an unbreakable awareness of one's true self, rooted in compassion, clarity, and honesty. For Egyptians, this meant not only preparing the body, but fortifying the soul with spells, prayers, and an ethical code that would support it in the unseen realms. They believed that one's life on earth is a reflection of one's journey beyond it, and as we explore this ancient text together, we're invited to reflect. How does our life shape our path after death? Egyptians left us with a message that this life is precious not because it is finite, but because it has the power to shape an eternal destiny. In the realm of Egyptian thought, life's purpose is etched into the walls of temples and tombs, a sacred code written not just for the living, but for those who have crossed into the afterlife. Known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day, or more commonly, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, this guide was far more than a set of superstitions. It was a profound collection of spells, incantations, and insights, each one a key to unlocking doors that the soul would encounter on its journey beyond death. Unlike a single bound manuscript, this book was often tailored uniquely to each individual, personalized to ensure that they carried a roadmap as unique as their own life. The Book of the Dead served an extraordinary purpose: to navigate the perils and promises awaiting each soul. Egyptians believed that the journey after death mirrored life's own challenges, but on a cosmic scale. The text offered a series of carefully worded spells, acting as safeguards and tools for those who would face the trials of the afterlife. Each passage is a ritual that, when recited, was believed to transform reality itself, granting the deceased power over obstacles and protection from unseen dangers. Just as the Tibetan Bardo Thodol guides the soul through challenging and liberating visions, the Egyptian spells provide the deceased with the means to transform fear and confusion into clarity and purpose. This wasn't a guide for the faint-hearted, but a manual for those who understood that death demanded courage and wisdom. Each spell was crafted to be recited or inscribed for the deceased, empowering them to summon their own strength, avoid eternal entrapment, and ultimately find their way to everlasting peace. And yet, it was more than a shield. It was a mirror, reflecting back to the individual their own life and choices, their actions and intentions, all distilled into the energy that would guide their path forward. Through these words, the soul was not simply escaping obstacles, but facing a deeply personal trial, to align with the principles of Mayat, to embody harmony, truth, and cosmic balance. The Egyptian Book of the Dead wasn't only concerned with what awaited the deceased. It also whispered truths to the living, shaping how they viewed their actions, relationships, and purpose. Each life decision was a practice for this ultimate journey, an opportunity to cultivate virtues that would light their way beyond the mortal world. It beckons us too to ask, what map are we creating through our lives? By living in alignment with values that transcend this earthly realm, the Egyptians believed one could secure a passage not just to survival, but to an eternity of peace and fulfillment. In this light, the Book of the Dead becomes not just an ancient text, but a call to live with purpose, integrity, and deep spiritual awareness. To the Egyptians, death was not a plunge into eternal darkness. Rather, it was a portal to something almost unthinkable, a new dawn, a fresh beginning beyond the veil of mortality. When they spoke of coming forth by day, they envisioned not a loss, but a liberation, a triumphant emergence of the soul from one world into another. This title for the Book of the Dead held profound meaning, suggesting that, far from ending, the soul stepped into a realm where it could continue to grow, learn, and exist in a state of transcendent light. This passage speaks to the Egyptian conviction that life's spirit could be restored to a state of radiant consciousness even after it left the body. Unlike the cyclical rebirth of the Tibetan Bardo Thodol, which hints at a continuum of existence through reincarnation, coming forth by day alludes to an eternal rebirth within the same self. Egyptians believed that if the soul was properly guided, it could cross into the realm of the gods as a renewed, complete version of itself. This was not merely a transition, but a transformation. The soul was reborn, equipped to traverse the afterlife's trials and embrace the light of Osiris. Each individual, through their adherence to the codes within the Book of the Dead, had the chance to overcome death's shroud, to step forth unburdened, ready to embrace eternal life. Coming forth by day also captures the Egyptians' unique approach to mortality. Death was not a fall, it was an ascension. The deceased was envisioned as embarking on a voyage much like the sun's own daily journey, disappearing into the night, only to return in glorious brilliance. Just as Ra, the sun god, was believed to travel through the underworld to be reborn each morning, so too did the soul travel a perilous route to a place of resurrection. Here, the metaphor of daybreak is both literal and symbolic, representing the moment when the spirit, unbound from earthly constraints, awakens to its true nature, a soul prepared to join the divine realms. The phrase "coming forth by day" offers a powerful invitation for reflection. If death is not an end but a doorway into a brighter, fuller existence, what does that imply about how we live? In the Egyptian view, life was a preparation for this radiant emergence. They believed that those who held their lives with reverence and intention would find themselves reborn on the other side, able to walk freely in the fields of eternity. In this, the Egyptians challenge us to consider our own journey, to live so that one day we too might come forth into a new light, ready to step confidently into the unknown. What did the ancient Egyptians believe actually happened at the moment of death? For them, the final breath marked the beginning of an extraordinary journey, a passage into realms most mortals could only imagine. To the Egyptians, the moment of death was a crossing, a threshold where the soul, previously bound by flesh and earthly attachments, separated from the physical body to venture into the afterlife's complex landscape. It was here that the spiritual self would awaken, fully conscious yet disoriented, in the midst of an immense and enigmatic transformation. Egyptians saw death not as an end, but as the ultimate moment of truth, the unveiling of a world more real and timeless than any earthly existence. The journey that began at death's door was fraught with challenges. In the Egyptian mind, death opened into a series of trials, and each soul would face forces they had only glimpsed in myth and ritual. Unlike the Tibetan view of temporary projections in the Bardo states, Egyptian theology posited a vivid, structured realm filled with real entities, protective deities, ancient guardians, and malevolent spirits. The first moments after death were crucial, as the soul would encounter these beings immediately. This phase wasn't just about survival, it was about alignment. Could the soul, in the face of unfamiliar landscapes and unknown beings, maintain its purity, courage, and integrity? This challenge revealed the Egyptian belief in the soul's resilience, its power to navigate even the most daunting realms with the right tools and wisdom. Egyptian philosophy saw the soul's resilience as its greatest weapon. With the Book of the Dead as its guide, the soul entered this new realm prepared, armed with spells, symbols, and sacred knowledge that reminded it of its divine essence. The Egyptians believed that while the underworld held threats, it also held the potential for profound realization. Here, the soul was tested not just in bravery, but in self-recognition. Could it recognize the essence of divine truth within itself when faced with the unknown? The trials, after all, were reflections of one's own beliefs, fears, and attachments, mirroring the Tibetan notion that all external threats are manifestations of the inner mind. In this sense, death became a journey into self-discovery, a chance to confront and transcend the illusions of life. For the Egyptians, the journey through death taught the greatest lesson of all, that life and death are two halves of the same cycle, each leading into the next. Death was not simply the cessation of life, but a passage to a higher truth. The preparation and courage required at the moment of crossing were meant to remind the soul of its true nature, a nature that transcends physical form and unites with the eternal. Through this lens, the Egyptians understood death as an awakening, an initiation into timeless wisdom, and a test of whether the soul was ready to fully grasp its own immortality. What if we, too, viewed our lives as preparation for such an awakening? Would we approach life's choices differently, with more reverence, more courage, and a deeper sense of purpose? Death, to the ancient Egyptians, was a journey into a hidden world, one where the soul encountered gates guarded by powerful beings, each one a keeper of profound truths and a mirror of the soul's worthiness. As the newly released spirit traversed these guarded thresholds, it wasn't merely moving through space, but through stages of inner revelation and alignment. Each gate symbolized a test, a confrontation with the inner forces of virtue, integrity, and the hidden fears that had accumulated in life. For Egyptians, these gates were a rite of passage, and each guardian reflected a layer of the soul's essence, much like the Tibetan encounter with deities in the Bardo states, yet unique in its specificity to Egyptian cosmology. Imagine standing before one of these formidable gates, with a guardian whose gaze penetrates the core of your being. The Egyptians believed these guardians represented cosmic truths and divine order, figures who could grant passage or hold the soul back. Unlike the Tibetan perspective, which emphasizes impermanence, Egyptian tradition placed a deep focus on ethical purity as the key to progressing through these gates. Each guardian was a reminder that the soul must be balanced, righteous, and untainted by the distortions of earthly desires and attachments. The journey wasn't about defeating an external opponent, but proving oneself in the face of divine principles. Here, the afterlife became not a place of arbitrary judgment, but a structured path of moral self-reckoning. This Egyptian trial resonates with a timeless theme, that our true obstacles lie within. To pass these gates, the soul had to declare its freedom from specific transgressions, an act known as the negative confession. In this ancient ritual, the soul proclaimed its purity by renouncing sins it had not committed in life, affirming its alignment with Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order and truth. This confession wasn't just a statement, it was a call for the soul to recognize its alignment, or lack thereof, with eternal truth. The Egyptian system here echoes the karmic framework of the Tibetan text, yet it is distinct in its formality, requiring a complete, spoken allegiance to universal harmony. For the Egyptians, words held power. Each declaration was a force that solidified the soul's moral standing and moved it closer to transcendence. Through this, the Egyptians imparted a crucial teaching. The journey after death is an encounter with the deepest truths about ourselves, revealing not just what we have done, but what we have become. In this sense, the gates of the underworld weren't obstacles, but milestones of spiritual maturity, each one pushing the soul closer to self-realization. Could it be that these ancient beliefs hold a mirror to our own lives today? What if, instead of fearing the unknown, we saw each challenge as a call to evolve, a gate leading to a deeper truth about our inner nature? Egyptian philosophy teaches us that life's ultimate journey, through death, is one of facing what we've sown within ourselves and stepping forward, transformed, with each truth we embrace. In the Egyptian vision of the afterlife, there was a ritual of unparalleled importance, the weighing of the heart. This moment wasn't merely symbolic, it represented the soul's ultimate reckoning. The heart, in Egyptian thought, was more than a physical organ. It was the seat of one's emotions, choices, and the essence of who one had become over a lifetime. Imagine, after traversing the treacherous paths and gates of the underworld, standing before a divine scale. Here, the god Anubis places your heart on one side and the feather of Ma'at, symbolizing truth and justice, on the other. The soul held its breath, for the outcome would determine its destiny. Unlike in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where the journey emphasizes karmic accumulation and dissolution, the Egyptian ritual focused on purity and ethical clarity, a commitment to balance in the cosmic order. In this ritual, we see a profound teaching on accountability. The Egyptians believed that a heart burdened with deceit, cruelty, or selfishness would tip the scale, condemning the soul to a darker fate. A heart as light as the feather of Ma'at, however, would grant passage to the field of reeds, an eternal paradise of peace and abundance. This judgment wasn't delivered by a vengeful God. It was self-evident, a result of one's actions and inner harmony. Just as in Tibetan Buddhism, where awareness and self-realization are key, the Egyptian afterlife demanded alignment with Ma'at's principles of truth and integrity. The parallel is striking, yet nuanced. The Egyptian soul had to embody ethical harmony, whereas the Tibetan soul was taught to recognize the illusion of duality and attachment. As the scales teetered, the soul came face to face with its own truth. The heart in Egyptian philosophy held an imprint of all that one had been, each emotion, intention, and hidden thought. There was no veil to hide behind. The soul saw itself fully, for better or worse. In this way, the Egyptians imparted a timeless lesson, that one's essence, shaped by everyday choices, carries forward. This ritual teaches us that actions have weight, even beyond this life. The Egyptians saw this reckoning not as punishment, but as a sacred mirror, a reflection of how closely one's life aligned with universal principles. In today's world, where actions and intentions often seem to disappear without consequence, this philosophy offers a call for reflection, a reminder that our inner lives have an inherent accountability. The weighing of the heart challenges us with a question that transcends time. What legacy does your heart carry? The Egyptians believed that how we live echoes into eternity, that each choice and thought contributes to an invisible yet powerful balance. In essence, the weighing of the heart is an invitation to examine what lies within, to consider not just our outward actions, but the silent weights of our hearts. Through this ritual, the ancient Egyptians left us a profound truth. True liberation is found in self-examination, in balancing our intentions with universal harmony. In a world still grappling with the meaning of life and death, their wisdom calls us to weigh our own hearts, not out of fear, but as a way of embracing the truth that shapes us all. Osiris, the resurrected god and ruler of the underworld, stands as a figure of rebirth and judgment within Egyptian mythology. More than a mere deity, he was a guiding force for the dead, a bridge between mortal life and the divine realms. Osiris's presence wasn't solely as a judge, but as a symbol of continuity, of life beyond death. In his myth, he himself experienced death, dismemberment, and reassembly, emerging with greater wisdom and power. Imagine facing this ancient god, a being who embodies both the tragedy of death and the triumph of renewal, gazing upon you with the understanding of one who has traversed this journey himself. Osiris represents an afterlife philosophy where death is not the end, but a metamorphosis, an idea shared in a way with the Tibetan notion of transformation through bardos. In Egyptian culture, Osiris wasn't merely feared, he was revered and deeply trusted. The Egyptians believed that upon death, one would stand before Osiris, who would assess the purity of the soul. This judgment, however, was not an arbitrary decision, but a reflection of one's life. Through Osiris, the Egyptians saw death as a sacred right, an opportunity to be reborn into a new state of existence. His judgment was considered fair and just, embodying the divine principle of Ma'at. Unlike the Tibetan lamas who guide souls through the bardos, Osiris was both guide and threshold. His acceptance was the ultimate validation of a life lived in balance. His dual role reflects the Egyptian understanding of justice and renewal, concepts that tie one's moral integrity directly to the soul's eternal journey. Osiris also represented the promise of resurrection. Egyptians believed that, just as Osiris rose again, they too could transcend death and enter a paradisiacal afterlife if they lived in alignment with truth. This belief provided a powerful metaphor for life itself. In Osiris's story, there's an emphasis on the impermanence of the body and the enduring nature of the soul, which echoes Tibetan teachings on the illusion of the physical form. The Egyptians taught that the soul's journey mirrored that of Osiris, an ongoing cycle of endings and beginnings, a sacred rhythm echoing through eternity. While the Tibetan Book of the Dead focuses on liberation from cycles of rebirth, Osiris's promise was one of rebirth within a divine order, a continuation within a balanced cosmos. Reflecting on Osiris's role, we're invited to contemplate our own lives and the legacies we leave behind. Osiris embodies a timeless truth, that each of us will one day face a moment of profound self-reckoning. In Egyptian thought, this moment is not about punishment, but transformation, a return to truth. Osiris calls us to remember that death is a passage, a doorway leading not into darkness, but into renewal. His presence reminds us that the life we lead shapes the journey ahead, that in choosing integrity, we prepare ourselves for a journey through the realms beyond. Through Osiris, the Egyptians offer a powerful vision of an afterlife where transformation is not only possible, but inevitable. In his judgment, we find an enduring message, that we hold the keys to our rebirth, that within each end lies the potential for a new beginning. Imagine standing before the gods, heart laid bare, reciting not a list of your accomplishments, but of your innocence. The negative confession, a declaration of 42 statements where the soul attests to the sins it did not commit, was a profound ritual in ancient Egyptian thought. And it wasn't about mere absolution. This was the soul's affirmation of a life lived in alignment with Ma'at, the cosmic order. By declaring the evils they had not committed, Egyptians weren't just seeking validation, but proclaiming a life woven with ethics, respect, and balance. In many ways, the negative confession offered a lens into the moral values that defined Egyptian society. This confessional act resonates differently when viewed through the lens of Tibetan philosophy. While the Tibetan tradition also values right conduct, it emphasizes the gradual purification of karma and mental transformation. In contrast, the Egyptians embraced this act as a testament to a life already lived in harmony. Each declaration in the negative confession echoed the ethical bedrock of Egyptian spirituality: respect for the divine, for nature, and for one's fellow beings. It wasn't just about avoiding harm, but living in a state of reciprocity, maintaining balance not only with other humans but with the forces of the universe itself. The negative confession also symbolized a profound understanding of self. Rather than listing good deeds, it required the deceased to affirm the purity of their heart through negation, a practice that strips away ego and attachment, revealing the essence of their character. By stating, "I have not stolen, I have not lied," or "I have not acted with malice," the Egyptians sought alignment with the timeless principles of Ma'at. In their belief, these declarations transformed the soul, shaping it into a form worthy of merging with the eternal order of the universe. Unlike other belief systems focused on cumulative acts of virtue, this was about embodying a state of being that transcended individual achievements. In the stillness of this ancient rite, the Egyptians left us with a powerful message. Life's true legacy is not measured in moments of grandeur, but in the quiet choices of integrity we make each day. The negative confession urges us to consider how we live in relation to others, to nature, and to ourselves. It's a reminder that ethics are not just societal expectations, but spiritual alignments that anchor us to something greater. In this profound act, the Egyptians believed that by staying true to Ma'at's principles, one could attain a purity of spirit that death could not tarnish, a harmony that would echo through the halls of eternity. Picture the soul, vulnerable and unbound, moving through realms of shadow and mystery in its journey beyond death. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, or the Book of Coming Forth by Day, is filled with spells, ancient words believed to hold the power to protect, to guide, and even to transform. These aren't mere incantations, but spiritual armors crafted for the soul's most crucial journey. Every phrase, each spell, is imbued with the wisdom of a civilization that understood life and death as deeply intertwined forces, with language as the bridge between worlds. To the Egyptians, these spells were vital, equipping the soul to overcome the trials of the underworld. Each spell could grant power over demons, pacify hostile forces, or call upon the favor of the gods. They believed words had intrinsic energy, an echo of divine truth that could influence reality. While Tibetan Buddhism also uses mantras as tools for navigating the afterlife, the Egyptian spells served as precise instructions. Where Tibetan mantras aim to dissolve the ego and align the mind with ultimate truth, Egyptian spells offer specific protections, guiding the soul step by step through each perilous threshold. The spells, however, went beyond protection. They were keys to unlocking the higher self. By invoking certain words and names, the deceased could remember their divine nature, countering any illusions or fears that arose in the journey. This practice isn't only about shielding oneself, but about using language as a transformative force. The Egyptians saw each spell as a reminder of the soul's latent power and divine origin, empowering it to act with clarity and purpose. These words would resonate within the soul, stripping away doubts and fortifying its resolve to reach eternal peace. This approach to language as a force of creation and defense reveals much about Egyptian beliefs on the power of words. To them, spells weren't simply spoken. They were lived, embodying an eternal truth that transcends the boundaries of life and death. In this way, the Egyptians remind us that words hold profound potential. Each spell within the Book of the Dead serves as a testament to the power of intentional language, a force that can bridge realms, transform consciousness, and guide us toward the ultimate mystery. For the Egyptians, these spells were both maps and companions, lighting the path in a journey that each of us, one day, will undertake. Imagine a world where symbols are more than just markings. They are living forces, vessels of divine energy that connect mortals to the gods. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs served as more than just written language. They were considered magical tools that could alter reality. Each symbol within the Book of Coming Forth by Day carried profound significance, functioning as a conduit for the divine. From the Ankh, symbolizing eternal life, to the scarab, embodying rebirth and transformation, these symbols were seen as keys to unlock the mysteries of the afterlife and safeguard the soul on its journey. The Egyptians believed that these symbols, when inscribed or uttered, possessed a transformative power. Every hieroglyph within the Book of the Dead was more than a word. It was a gateway, a spiritual tool that aligned the soul with cosmic forces. In the same way that Tibetan Buddhism uses mandalas, or symbolic representations of deities, to assist in meditative focus and liberation, Egyptians relied on symbols to manifest protection, clarity, and strength. Each hieroglyph was a sacred link to the divine, carefully crafted to guide the soul beyond physical death and to align it with the forces of creation and eternity. Through the Ankh, Egyptians invoked the essence of immortality. Through the Eye of Horus, they called upon divine protection and restoration. By carving these symbols onto tomb walls, sarcophagi, and amulets, they fortified the journey of the deceased, ensuring the presence of divine guidance and assistance. These symbols didn't just represent ideas. They held an active, energetic presence, capable of influencing the very fabric of the afterlife. In this sense, hieroglyphs were not passive relics of language but alive, vibrating with the potency of the cosmos and the wisdom of ages. For the Egyptians, symbols and hieroglyphs provided not only practical guidance for the deceased, but also a spiritual compass for the living. The act of writing or inscribing these symbols was itself an offering, a sacred ritual that acknowledged the divine nature within all beings. Just as the Tibetan mandalas draw practitioners into deeper understanding and alignment with universal energies, the Egyptian symbols connect individuals to the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In both traditions, these symbols remind us of the invisible threads that bind us to something greater than ourselves, a profound reminder that in life or death, we are not alone on our journey. In ancient Egyptian belief, the soul's journey beyond death was deeply intertwined with the physical preservation of the body. This sacred duty fell to Anubis, the god of embalming and protector of the deceased, who guided the soul through the mysteries of the underworld. Unlike Tibetan Buddhism, which emphasizes mental and spiritual liberation from the physical form, the Egyptian view revered the body as a vessel that the soul might one day need again. Anubis's role was not only to shield the dead from harm, but to ensure that the body was carefully preserved, a crucial step toward a harmonious afterlife. The Egyptian ritual of mummification, overseen by Anubis, was an intricate process designed to safeguard the body's physical integrity, seen as essential to the soul's stability in the afterlife. Every stage of embalming was rich with symbolism and invocation, reflecting a belief in the interdependence of body and soul, even beyond death. The preservation of the body allowed the soul to return to it if needed, for the Egyptians believed that the Ka, life force, and Ba, individual personality, required an anchor. This stands in contrast to Tibetan teachings, where mental preparation and detachment from the physical form are paramount to navigating the bardos. Anubis himself embodies this connection between the physical and the spiritual. With his jackal head and human body, he represents a bridge between worlds, the threshold guardian, who ensures that the soul's journey through the realms of the dead remains protected. Unlike deities that punish or judge, Anubis serves as a guide, helping the deceased safely pass through the trials of the underworld. In Egyptian iconography, he is often depicted overseeing the mummification process or standing at the scales during the weighing of the heart ceremony, symbolizing his vital role as the custodian of both body and soul. In the Egyptian worldview, preserving the body was akin to preserving the soul's chance at eternal life. It provided a stable foundation from which the soul could navigate the spiritual trials ahead. This reverence for the body reminds us of the Egyptians' holistic approach to existence, where life and death were bound in a seamless continuity. Through the lens of Anubis, we see that for the Egyptians, the physical and spiritual were two halves of a whole, each essential to the other. This belief underscores a timeless lesson, that in honoring our physical existence, we may also honor the spirit, bridging the gap between worlds and preparing for the journey that awaits. In the Egyptian vision of the afterlife, one of the most profound and challenging trials is the crossing of the lake of fire, a realm where the soul's purity and resilience are put to the test. This lake, blazing with divine fire, is not meant as a punishment, but as a passage, a purifying flame that burns away the impurities and illusions accumulated through life. Here, the Egyptians held a view that resonates with the Tibetan concept of karmic purification, where one must face inner burdens and unresolved attachments to proceed toward enlightenment. This trial is transformative. It demands the soul to confront all it has carried, all it has become. Egyptian philosophy teaches that only the courageous, those willing to shed falsehoods and embrace their true essence, can make it across the lake of fire. Just as Tibetan Buddhists view the bardos as opportunities to overcome karmic illusions, Egyptians saw this lake as a crucible for the soul's purification. It strips away ego, fear, and deception, leaving only the essence of the self, refined and ready for the afterlife's final stages. It is both a journey and a trial, where one's very substance is laid bare. Unlike Western notions of fiery punishment, the lake of fire in Egyptian lore holds a sacred purpose. It is a place of rebirth. Souls who cross it successfully emerge stronger, cleansed of life's weights and illusions. In this way, the lake of fire is less a threat and more a transformative portal. Souls that fail to cross it may remain bound by earthly attachments, unable to release their fears and desires. But for those who pass, it signifies a profound spiritual breakthrough, a stepping stone to a new and exalted state of being, where clarity and purity shine as beacons of their journey. In exploring this symbolic lake, we encounter a powerful truth about the Egyptian afterlife, that to move forward, one must first confront and transcend what holds them back. The lake of fire is a reminder that purification isn't about punishment, but about transformation, about peeling away layers of identity until only the core, untainted soul remains. This ancient wisdom speaks to us even today, encouraging us to face our own inner lakes of fire by examining the attachments, fears, and illusions we carry. For the Egyptians, passing this trial wasn't just about survival. It was about becoming worthy of the divine realms beyond. In the Egyptian afterlife, the ultimate destination for a soul that has passed through trials and transformations is the field of reeds, an eternal paradise unlike any other. Imagine a lush, vibrant land mirroring the beauty of the Nile's fertile banks, filled with golden fields, abundant crops, and crystal-clear waters. To the ancient Egyptians, the field of reeds was not just a dream, but a divine reality, a realm where the soul could experience a perfected version of earthly life without struggle, hunger, or fear. This paradise represents the fulfillment of one's spiritual journey, a vision of harmony where the soul, purified and freed from earthly burdens, finds eternal rest and joy. But the field of reeds is more than a tranquil sanctuary. For the Egyptians, this paradise symbolized the culmination of the soul's growth and enlightenment. Unlike the Tibetan view of nirvana, which offers a release from the cycle of life and rebirth, The field of reeds is a celebration of life's best qualities, now eternal and elevated. Here, the soul does not dissolve into pure consciousness, but instead reconnects with loved ones, continues to enjoy familiar surroundings, and even undertakes tasks such as farming or crafting as expressions of a perfected, joyful existence. This afterlife is one where individuality and essence remain intact, cherished within a peaceful, everlasting community. This vision of paradise reveals a deeply optimistic philosophy. For the Egyptians, life was sacred and worth preserving beyond death. The field of reeds wasn't a departure from existence, but a continuation on a higher, more harmonious plane. It is a vision that reflects their reverence for life itself, a belief that the afterlife should mirror earthly beauty, but stripped of suffering and hardship. Here, the Egyptian view diverges from Tibetan ideals. While both value spiritual evolution, Egyptians saw enlightenment not as escape, but as enhanced, unending experience. Paradise was not distant or abstract, but relatable, grounded in the familiar joys and relationships that define a fulfilled life. In reaching the field of reeds, the Egyptian soul found the essence of life unbroken and refined. This ancient wisdom suggests that our deepest joys and connections are timeless, valuable not only in life, but beyond it. The field of reeds invites us to ponder the beauty we cultivate here, and how it might echo in realms unseen. As we envision this paradise, the Egyptian philosophy encourages us to live with intention, finding joy in what we create and who we become. Their concept of an eternal, perfect life speaks to our own desire for meaning, reminding us that paradise is a reflection of the life we cherish most profoundly. In ancient Egypt, names held profound significance, embodying not just identity, but the very essence of a person or deity. The Egyptian Book of the Dead teaches that knowing and using true names in the afterlife could empower a soul to navigate obstacles, command respect from spiritual beings, and even protect against potential harm. Names were more than labels. They were considered conduits of power, connecting the bearer to their deepest nature and the divine. Imagine a reality where simply invoking a name aligns the soul with cosmic forces, a spiritual passport through realms unseen. This belief that a true name could transform one's journey reflects the Egyptians' deep understanding of self-knowledge as a form of power. Each soul needed to remember its own name and the names of the gods it would encounter to gain authority and assurance in the face of challenges. By calling upon these names, the soul engaged in an ancient form of spiritual alignment, reinforcing its purpose and identity. In many ways, this concept parallels Tibetan practices with sacred mantras, where words are vehicles for transformation and protection, grounding the soul in divine reality. However, the Egyptian approach placed special emphasis on identity, on knowing oneself as a way to navigate the cosmos with clarity and strength. In the Egyptian view, forgetting or losing one's name was a profound threat, for it meant becoming untethered in the afterlife, potentially fading into obscurity, or being susceptible to the unknown forces of the underworld. To the Egyptians, this loss of identity represented a deeper spiritual vulnerability. Their reverence for true names suggests an understanding that identity is not merely a mortal construct, but an eternal truth, one that must be preserved and honored in both life and death. For them, the afterlife was as much a journey of self-assertion as it was of transcendence, and to succeed, the soul had to be anchored in who it was at its core. Through the lens of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the idea of true names invites us to reflect on the nature of identity and transformation. What would it mean to know one's true self so deeply that it could guide, protect, and empower through the unknown? The Egyptians saw identity not as something to be dissolved, but as a vessel of continuity, one that would carry the soul beyond the limits of mortal existence. This philosophy challenges us to honor our own unique essence, recognizing that what we cultivate in life, our values, connections, and self-knowledge may be the very keys to navigating whatever lies beyond. As we peel back the layers of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, an unexpected realization emerges. This ancient text, despite its age, holds a mirror to our deepest existential questions today. At its heart, it is not just a guide through death, but a profound philosophy on how to live with purpose, integrity, and awareness. Its timeless wisdom transcends culture and era, reaching across millennia to remind us of universal truths about identity, morality, and the journey of the soul. This text is an invitation not only to consider the afterlife, but to examine what it means to live a life that prepares us for that ultimate journey. In today's world, where distraction and superficial pursuits often eclipse deeper reflection, the Book of the Dead brings us back to fundamental questions. What is the purpose of life? How do we prepare ourselves for the inevitable unknown? The ancient Egyptians viewed each life as a preparation, a crafting of the self that could withstand the tests of eternity. This perspective challenges our modern, often transient mindset, asking us to cultivate qualities that endure: truth, compassion, and self-awareness. Like the Tibetan Bardo Thodol, which emphasizes detachment and understanding in life to ease the soul's transition, the Book of the Dead encourages a similar journey, though through self-assertion, moral integrity, and alignment with cosmic order. The Egyptian teachings resonate with those seeking more than just material success. The soul's journey through the underworld, facing trials, and seeking the field of reeds, all symbolize an inner journey that each of us undertakes in the pursuit of meaning. In their insistence on the preservation of the soul's identity, the Egyptians urge us to know ourselves at a core level, to understand what defines us and carries us forward, even when the physical fades away. This wisdom echoes the values found in diverse spiritual paths, suggesting that across cultures and centuries, there is an inherent recognition that life's true purpose transcends the visible, aiming for something eternal. Ultimately, the Egyptian Book of the Dead is not just an artifact of a bygone civilization, but a powerful reminder of the potential within each human life. Its teachings challenge us to confront our fears, clarify our values, and live consciously. In understanding these ancient beliefs, we are invited to reframe our own relationship with mortality, seeing death not as an end, but as part of a greater continuity. As we close this exploration, the question remains: how can we, in a world vastly different from ancient Egypt, apply these insights to lead lives that honor both our finite time and our infinite potential? Perhaps, by recognizing death as a motivator, we can shape our lives with purpose and gratitude, allowing the wisdom of the past to guide us into a future full of meaning.